Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new Q&A. The new expansion has been announced, yet no release date has been given, so we still have a fair bit of time to wait until we can actually hold it, play it, enjoy it. Some of you might still have a blast in Warlords of Draenor with raiding and whatnot, while others might have decided to take a little break. Either way, we have some time to kill, and what better way to do it than to answer a few questions. Let's start this Q&A off with two questions in one. First of all, hey Noble, is 10 to 25 heroes lore breaking? Should the new bosses, Garrosh, recognize that we've killed some elite badasses by now? Deathwing, why do I have to prove myself to factions? Shouldn't they know who I am? Gaming reasons? Are we even canon? What do you think? Thanks, smiley face, AV Robot Cat 2013 from Akiros Vengeance. And then the second question from Gregoron Blackbane. Do you think in the next expansion we'll keep our title as Commander? Or perhaps if the next expansion is underwater themed, where we do battle with Vizhar and the forces, we'll receive the title of Admiral and send troops to battles at sea? Gregoron, to your question, it's very hard to predict the future, but defining a role within the lore is a pretty tricky thing, because on the one hand, we keep on saving the world from these incredibly dangerous threats like Deathwing, Old Gods, Elemental Lords, all that good stuff, we're the ones helping out there, but on the other hand, in nearly each expansion, they expect us to prove our worth by killing 20 rats, by collecting 10 cow asses, for example. They expect us to prove our worth time and time again. During Wrath of the Lich King, they added a little recognition for our deeds. If you remember the starting area, right as you met up in Northrend, there was this sign-up line for heroes that wanted to help in the campaign against the Lich King, and we were allowed to skip the sign-up line, which I really liked. It's a minor thing, but I really liked it because it shows that the people of Azeroth, they remember what you did, and it gives a certain sense of acknowledgement for your deeds. In the lore, you'll never see your name mentioned. It will never say that Noble brought down the mighty Deathwing and saved the world of Azeroth. Instead, they'll mention our involvement from time to time, if they even mention it, and they describe it as adventurers that helped out the heroes of the story. Adventurers helped Thrall in the aspects with bringing down Deathwing. Heroes of the Horde and Alliance teamed up and brought down Garrosh. That's how we are described within the story. So are we canon? Well, a little bit, but it depends on the story itself. It depends if they recognize us like that. That said, the whole commander bit, it puts them in an awkward spot. Very involving, they've recognized us as a vital part in the campaign on Draenor, and that's a really cool concept in my opinion. Our actions opened up the way for Horde and Alliance to fulfill the mission, so I wouldn't want it any other way. But as you said, how will they act in the next expansion? I highly doubt that next time around they'll come to us for advice, or they'll call us the commander again. They'll let us rule Horde and Alliance. I highly doubt that will ever happen. So I'll expect they will just be pushed down to grunts once more that will have to prove our worth, and that's something you can't really avoid in a game like World of Warcraft. You can't place the adventurers above the heroes of the story, otherwise they wouldn't be the heroes anymore. To your final part about Garrosh recognizing us, I think it would have been a very nice detail for someone like Garrosh to recognize us, because especially with Garrosh, we teamed up with him if you were part of the Horde. You teamed up with him during Wrath of the Lich King. It would have been really cool if he recognized us as the heroes that he has worked with before. So I checked out the Siege of Orgrimmar trailer, and he was actually counting on the might of the world to come and get him.
The world will hear of this. They will come for you.
Yes, I'm counting on it. The armies of the world will come for me. And within my fortress, they will face all the terrible creatures I have wrought. The boundless power I have mastered. And one by one, they will fall at my feet. Anyone who would rise against my new horde will be impaled upon the spires of Orgrimmar!
A lot of bad guys are like, come at me bro, and they expect to be powerful enough to stand against us. So in the case of Garrosh, he knew that we were coming and he was ready to take us on. That's quite ballsy when you think about it. Like other enemies, they might not fully recognize what exactly we can do, but Garrosh has seen it firsthand, you know. The heroes that teamed up with him during Wrath of the Lich King are coming for him, and he's actually counting on it. He's expecting to be able to stand up against it and take them all out. It's quite ballsy, but there you go. As a little side note, I've made this Q&A as a backup plan in case I wouldn't be able to make a video for the new expansion announcements. Thankfully, I did find the time to do it, so that means that part of this actually most of this, it was recorded before the next expansion was announced. To add a little bit to my answer, it's interesting to see how we develop as grunts, needing to prove ourselves, to commanders in warlords, and now with Legion we know that we'll be the ones collecting artifacts from either fallen heroes or heroes that fallen to despair. It's hard to say who might die and who will simply despair, but it's interesting to see that we are the ones who are going to be stepping up to the plate where established heroes falter. I wonder if this is going to be recognized in upcoming novels. Like, my answer still stands, right? You'll never see your name mentioned in a book, but perhaps adventurers will become more than that. You also have to wonder what's going to happen after Legion. Will we simply return the artifacts? Will we walk up to someone like Thrall, for example, if he survives, and say, I'm done, here's your Doomhammer back, thanks for letting me borrow it? Where do you take us when we reach the area of being actual heroes? Like, we've always been heroes in the storyline, right? But never have the heroes of the storyline faltered, if that makes sense. Never has someone like Thrall or Tyrion or whoever sat there in despair while we the heroes stepped up and were like, we're gonna save Azeroth. Do you take this further? Are we going to go for Titanic levels next? Or is there going to be a reason for us to hand over our artifacts? Are we going to be pushed back to grunt levels? It's very interesting, and I wonder if Blizzard has considered the future when they made these plans. Time will tell, I surely hope so, but it's an interesting development. Next question. If Illidan returns, will he still go to try to destroy the Frozen Throne? Or maybe become the Lich King? Though I know you believe it will be Sylvanas, as do I. Will we see a Demon Hunter or Necromancer class added to this? And what will this mean for Malfurion? Will the Emerald Dream be this expansion? From Punky Adrian. I thought this was an interesting question, since most of the time people ask me just a simple question, will Illidan return? But I've never really speculated on what he might do if he makes a return. To your part of the question, like, will we see a Demon Hunter or Necromancer, or will we see the Emerald Dream? Really cool concepts, but that's not really something I can answer. You know, it's entirely up to Blizzard what they will or will not put into the expansion, so that's very hard for me to say. Let me also clarify that I personally don't see Sylvanas become the Lich Queen, except when she's cornered and she has no other options left. I speculated about this in my 3 possible expansions video, and it's not impossible. It's not impossible for her to become the Lich Queen, yet her motive is simply to stay alive. Becoming the Lich Queen puts a big target on your head, so it goes against what she wants, but if she ever does it, I would say that in a situation where she has no option left, then she might pick up the helmet and become the Lich Queen. Otherwise, you know, Sylvanas just wants to stay alive. Now for Illidan, what might he do when he comes back? The whole destroy the Frozen Throne bit was because Kil'jaeden came to him and gave him the order. Unless Kil'jaeden and Illidan have spent their time bonding with each other, I doubt that they're on friendly terms, and I doubt that Illidan wants to do him any favors. If Kil'jaeden isn't a threat to Illidan, then there's really no reason to continue with the mission, not to mention that Kil'jaeden, he wanted Lich King to be destroyed, but he wanted it before he was merged with Arthas and liberated himself from Kil'jaeden's control. So that whole mission of Arthas merging with the Lich King, Kil'jaeden no longer having control over him, that failed. You know, Illidan failed in his mission and Kil'jaeden did lose control. So that whole part has kind of been taken care of. So to your question, what exactly could Illidan do in the storyline? Well, it kind of depends on what the global storyline behind it is. I've always seen Illidan as the guy that got royally screwed over time and time again. He had a lust for power. Definitely, he was arrogant for sure, but he also tried to be a hero and do the good thing. During War of the Ancients, he took a great risk and he infiltrated Azar and the Highborn to fight against them from within. Was it not for the Old Gods, his plans might have actually succeeded and he would be the hero of the Night Elves. Of course, this didn't happen. The Old Gods, they turned a spell against him. The Night Elves, they imprisoned him for creating a new Well of Eternity because they didn't want magic to be a part of their society anymore, because that's the thing that drew the attention of the Legion in the first place. Now, of course, with the Cataclysm, the Night Elves embraced the way of magic again, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the whole reason why they imprisoned Illidan. Now, during Warcraft 3, after being imprisoned for 10,000 years, Illidan was still willing to work for the greater good, because Tyrande asked of him to do so. His love for Tyrande led to him abandoning his task given by Kil'jaeden, forcing him to hide on Outland, and eventually lose from Arthas and lose his mind. They didn't do a great job of Illidan's story during the Burning Crusade, since they turned him from a guy that tried to be good, yet failed at it, to a guy that simply lost his mind and was a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. I think that was really a big shame towards Illidan's story, so if they bring him back, I hope they'll do a better job, and I hope they'll do his character justice. He won't be a superhero, you know, he shouldn't be the guy that's holier than everything. He's a sneaky character with arrogance that will try to do his own thing, that will try to gain power, yet should still try to do the good thing as well. If it was up to me, I would cut him loose from his obsession with Tyrande, since that girl has done him no good. Instead, I would love to see the Ward of Maiev take her place and have these two outcasts work together. Maiev was furious when Malfurion allowed the Highborn to come back to let the Night Elves use magic again, and she tried to take steps against him. She took it a bit too far with nearly killing Malfurion, yet I can understand her motives. Imagine giving up 10,000 years of your life to guard Illidan, prevent the abuse of magic, only to see magic be embraced once again. I would love to see the Night Elves to make the same mistake as they have done before, perhaps be persuaded by Azshara and N'Zoth to dabble with magics beyond their understanding and cause some delicious trouble. Not only would this create some drama within the Alliance, it would also give Illidan and Maiev a spot to be like, haha, we told you so, now let's clean up this mess for you. As always, it's hard to predict the future, but something in that direction, that would be my hope for Illidan. Not the good guy, not the crazy evil guy, somewhere in between. Hello, me to add a little bit of information again. Now that we know that Illidan will actually make a return, I still stand with my original answer. We'll probably see him as part of the Legion plans, perhaps he's forced to cooperate with them, perhaps he's so pissed at us that he doesn't care what happens to the world, but I can't imagine them pitching him as the bad guy. They wanted to bring Illidan back into the storyline for so long, Madsen has talked about giving him a redemption story, so I'd say that at first he's an enemy, and then later they turn him not necessarily into a hero, but more the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of situation. That's just my take on it though. Next question. Hi Noble, it's me again. I have a question about Troggs. Who are they? Where did they come from? Thank you for your answer and keep up your awesome work. From Mickey. I had to dive into some of the older records to find an answer to your question, and this is what I found. The first bit of information comes from Uldaman, where the Lorekeeper of Norgannon, he explains that Troggs are a possible anomaly out of the created Irvan. The anomaly is caused by something that he first describes as a matrix destabilization, but the Tribunal of Ages, it confirms that it's actually the Curse of Flesh. So what happened is that the Titans, they created the Irvan to help them with the mission of shaping the world, carving out the land, all that good stuff. It's unclear if the old gods were already on the planet when the Titans began their work, or if they infected the planet later on. Different sources give a different story, but the Tribunal, it says,
in the early stages of its development cycle, Azeroth suffered infection by parasitic, necrophotic symbiotes.
Necro One, speak bloody common, will ya?
Designation: Old Gods. Old Gods rendered all systems, including Earthen, defenseless in order to facilitate assimilation. This matrix destabilization has been termed the Curse of Flesh. Effects of destabilization increased over time.
So this says that Azeroth was already being developed and shaped by the Titans, and then it was infected by the Old Gods. But like I said, there are different versions of this story. Regardless, the Irvan were hit by the Curse of Flesh, and this caused them to change into Troggs. Troggs maintained the strength and power of the Irvan, but their minds were simply lost. Now they're driven by a strong sense of will and cunning. They even commit cannibalism, which is something that the Titans are completely against. They locked away their failed experiment within Uldaman, and they tried it again. Now the same anomaly, it hits their creation again, only this time the effects are different, and the result is the dwarves. Dwarves lost a fair bit of the Irvan strength, they became fleshy creatures, but their minds stayed powerful, sometimes even greater than the Irvan. The Titans, or the Creators as they're called, they viewed the dwarves as an acceptable variant, worthy of Genesis in its own right. That's pretty much the backstory of the Troggs, but Uldaman is not the only place where they show up. It's possible that the Titans simply didn't catch all of them to imprison them with Uldaman, or perhaps later creations were hit by the Curse of Flesh and they were transformed into Troggs. There's another bit of lore that doesn't make a lot of sense when it comes to the Troggs, since the Cataclysm introduced a new form, the so-called Stone Troggs. This variation is described as being the truest form of Trogg before the Curse of Flesh, which, as the name implies, should give you flesh. We know that the anomaly described it as the Curse of Flesh, so we know that you had Irvin, they were hit by the Curse of Flesh, and they became Troggs. That's the way that the whole evolution worked. Now, to give this an explanation, you could say that certain Troggs were able to keep their stony form, while others devolved even further and became squishier with flesh. These stone Troggs, like the Irvin, they somehow found a way to deep home through Uldum more than 15,000 years ago, and they've been warring with each other ever since. So that's what we know so far. The Curse of Flesh has transformed the Irvin into Troggs, and apparently you have the Stone Troggs in between. But the Curse of Flesh is not the only way that you can transform into a Trogg. There used to be a questline for the Horde, where they held out a dwarf called Figli the Exiled, and Figli, he was working on an excavation in Biomodan, and they found an item called the Tear of the Moons. Figli became obsessed with the item, but General Twinbraid recognized it for what it was, a cursed item, and he locked it away in their keep. As Horde players bring the item to Figli, he's very happy at first, he finally got his beloved item back, but then he transforms to a Trogg and it looks like he dies, but he actually passed out. With the Cataclysm revamp, Alliance players now get a quest to put Figli out of his misery, so he survived picking up the item, he survived the transformation, and now the Alliance puts him out of his misery. It's uncertain what this stone was, since it shattered before they could do any research on it, so perhaps it was indeed a cursed artifact of the Titans, perhaps the old gods had something to do with it, or perhaps it has a completely different origin. All we know is that it was able to transform a dwarf into a Trogg. Another creature that was transformed into a Trogg was an ogre, and this ogre was Worosh, an ogre mage of the Spirestone clan. He challenged Uruk Doomhowl, and Uruk, he stole Worosh's mojo and then cursed him into the form of a Trogg. We're asked to challenge Uruk ourselves, bring Worosh his mojo back, but with the Cataclysm revamp, it seems like lore-wise nobody ever decided to help out this ogre, since Worosh, he's still stuck in his Trogg form and he doesn't ask for help anymore. So there you go, that's the information behind the Troggs. Next question comes in from John Smith. Noble, I was thinking that since you did the story of Wintergrasp and the Vault of Arcavum in this video, would you be able to do the story of Barad and Baradin Hold at some point? Thanks. As with most PvP related things, the lore behind it is not a massive thing, but the story behind the Hold is described in Wikipedia as the following. More than 1,200 years ago, Arafor built the city of Barad, and Arafor, it was the first great human nation. During the Second War, Barad was a strategic staging area for Alliance forces. The Horde viewed Barad as an obstacle in their path to the Eastern Kingdoms and mounted an assault on the island. Unprepared for such aggression, the Alliance were expelled from Barad, and the citadel was raised, a charred symbol of the Horde's brutal victory. Following the Second War, what remained of the battlements was left to languish until the wizards of Calderas they claimed the island for a new purpose. Towering walls were again stacked high from the war-scarred stones, but in their cleverness, the arcanists they turned the citadel's defenses inwards, designing a mystical prison to hold the most powerful criminals. Serving the Teresian Magi, the Stromic population formed the Baradin's Wardens, charged with ensuring that the deadly prisoners locked away in the mystic Baradin Hold would never again walk free on Azeroth. Even the Kirin Tor imprisoned some powerful demons in the repurposed strongholds. And with the Cataclysm revamp, Barad has once again become a battleground between the Horde and Alliance. War Chief Garrus Hellscream has sent elite warriors known as Hellscream's Reach to the island, charged with taking it from the humans. Defending against them are the Baradin's Wardens, the army that originally guarded the prison. As the two forces fight for supremacy over the island, something sinister has taken over the prison fortress of Baradin Hold and the whole island in turn, with prison guards murdering each other or letting their charges free, insanity amongst Alliance soldiers, undead corpses rising from their graves, and spirits reliving their final battles. I was trying to find out why exactly Garrus and the Horde wanted the island, but it seems like there's no real reason given, so it probably doesn't have that much of a lore reason and is more than just to create some PvP on this area. Now if we take a look at the map, we can see that at Rusberg village, a fishing village and port, we see a bunch of pirates from different races. They've taken over the village after the original inhabitants. They were recalled to Stromgarde to deal with problems back home. They'll raid and attack anyone that they don't trust, and people have been asking like how the heck did Torrents end up there? And apparently the pirates, they recruited Torrents later on, and that's why you see the Torrents in the village. The Darkwood area is just a dark forest infested with spiders, whereas the people at Baradin Hold, they've gone crazy and violent. Largo's Overlook, Cape of Lost Hope, Wellson Shipyard, Restless Front and the Forgotten Hill. These areas are overrun by either ghosts or the undead, and it's uncertain what pushed these spirits and these creatures to haunt these areas, or in the case of Baradin Hold, why they turned violently insane. It's possible that the source comes from the prisoners within Baradin Hold, but some speculate that there's more going on, that the evil from below the ocean, the old god N'Zoth, has played his part in all of this. It would fit, considering the storyline that was going on during the Cataclysm, but we don't really know. Now for Baradin Hold, this was a maximum security prison, but the Cataclysm, it brought some devastation, and the prison's integrity has been compromised. I'm using a lot of fancy English words these days, sorry if I mispronounce any of them. As the Horde and Alliance duke it out on the island, the liberation of its forgotten terrors may be at hand. Inside, we find 3 bosses. First, you have Argalov. Unable to contain the massive pit lord Argalov in the cells of Dalaran's mighty violet hold, the Magi of the Kirin Tor were left with no choice but to confine the powerful demon beneath Tol Barad. You have Okufar. This ravenous demon broke free of its cage and gained access to the western wing of the prison, devouring all of the inmates held there. Okufar's gluttony resulted in a body too bloated to escape its environment, effectively turning the prison wing into its new holding cell. That's right, Okufar, he ate so much that he became too big to escape. It's a brilliant demon right there. And then finally you have Alizabal, Mistress of Hate. The Kirin Tor imprisoned Alizabal in their formidable violet hold not long after corrupted Magi summoned the Shivara into Azeroth. Despite arcane wards restricting her powers, the demon's malicious influence alone caused the guards to murder one another in sudden fits of rage. Her transfer to Baradin Hold prior to the Cataclysm has only aggravated the ruined prison's increasingly dire conditions.
I hate incompetent raiders.
So in short, the Cataclysm, it did some damage to the prison, and these demons were ready to break out, so we went in and stopped them. Which brings me to the final question for this Q&A, and this one has to do with the end of Warlords of Draenor. So if you haven't seen the end yet and you don't want any spoilers, then please turn off the video right now and let me just say thank you very much for watching. This question has been sent in so many times after we saw the mythic kill of Archimonde that I decided to spend a few minutes on it during this Q&A. The question is, did Archimonde really die at the end of Warlords of Draenor, or did his soul return to the Twisting Nether? This confusion is caused by the mythic version of the fight, in which we see Archimonde, he teleports the raid to the Twisting Nether, and there they duke it out and they take him out. From that you would say that he was killed within the Twisting Nether, the one place where we could take him out for good. And just as a side note, if you are a demon that can only be killed in the Twisting Nether, it doesn't make a lot of sense to actually summon your enemies to the Twisting Nether. But regardless of that, unfortunately we get the same exact cutscene at the end of the fight as we get at the end of all the other difficulties. You can see Archimonde, he falls down on the floor on Draenor, his light dies out on Draenor, which makes me believe that although we defeated him in Twisted Nether, some way, somehow, we all ended up back on Draenor. He does his little spell with Gul'dan, and his light, he dies on Draenor. This means that he doesn't die for real, it means that he didn't die in the Twisting Nether, his soul is going to go back there, but that's just my take on it, considering the information that we got. It could be that Blizzard wanted to go with the storyline like you fight him in the Twisting Nether, so you kill him in the Twisting Nether, but then the whole cutscene that you get doesn't make any sense. They should have made a updated cutscene. So in my opinion, like I said, didn't really die, his soul was sent back to the Nether. And with that final question, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of this Q&A. As always, if you have questions that you'd like to see answered in a future Q&A, leave a comment down below or send it in over at ask.fm and I might use it in the next video. I have a list of questions that I've answered in the past, so if you want to make sure that yours hasn't been answered before, check out that list, the link is in the description. Right everybody, have a great week everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!